Let's talk about how Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life relate to the weight loss journey. This is one of the best books I've ever read. Now, I actually didn't read it before I lost weight. I read it in my maintenance journey. And the thing though was like every page, I just found myself nodding my head saying, that's exactly right. And that was so true on the weight loss journey. In fact, I even keep the rules written here inside of my journal. And every time I finish a journal and get to the next one, I copy down the rules again because I feel like they're just good reminders, especially for the weight loss journey. Now, rule number 1 is stand up straight with your shoulders back. And this is crucially important on the weight loss journey because really, when you stand up straight, you have self-confidence. You believe you can do things. You know, when your posture is just kind of bent over and slouched, you feel like a victim. And, I was definitely in that place in 2014 where I felt like a victim. I felt like it was everyone else's fault that I was overweight. But it was really only after I learned to stand up straight with my shoulders back and believe that I could take charge of things that things started to change for me, that I did start to lose weight. And really, when you start to stand up straight, you start to grow a backbone and you start to be able to say no, first to yourself. You'll say no to yourself for, overeating or, no, I'm not going to eat right now. And then that can translate to later on saying no to others, which puts up good boundaries, which leads to less stress eating. Rule number 2, treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping. If I could only pick out one rule for the weight loss journey, this one would be it. It will get you to where you want to go with your weight loss because ultimately, weight loss is about realizing that you're worth taking care of, that you are worth the effort to get yourself out of bed in the morning, to go and do the exercise that you need to do, or to eat the way that you need to eat. You have to believe that you are worth the effort. So many times, especially for us moms, we're really good at taking care of everybody else. And, we make sure that, okay, these people have what they need and they're all good and they're feeling good. And yet we don't provide that same kind of care to ourselves. But if you start to treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping, your life changes. Rule number 3, make friends with people who want the best for you. The truth is, on the weight loss journey, you may find that the people you're hanging around aren't the best people to be hanging around. It might be that, you want to lose weight, but those people who you call your friends, they want you to stay overweight. They don't want you to change. And it can be tough to have to make that choice. But ultimately, you want to surround yourself with people who want the best for you, who don't want to keep you down. Like if you're obese right now and you have people encouraging you to stay obese, they're not wanting what's best for you. And look, it can be really difficult to find like-minded people who are striving for goals, but you'll be glad that you did if you make the effort to do this. What I found was on my journey, I had to be disciplined about, who I was hanging around, not only, friends, but also just what I was surrounding myself with, what kind of influences, learning how to turn off the news, turn off the negativity around me, unfollow, unfriend people on Facebook who were negative or causing drama all the time. And instead, just surrounding myself with positive influences that were making me better instead of worse. Rule number 4, compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. When you're losing weight, comparison can be so tempting, especially when there are people around you who are bragging about how fast they're losing weight and how easy it is for them. It can be really hard. It can make you think that you're doing something wrong or that you should copy whatever they're doing. And you might start to beat yourself up for the lack of progress, seemingly, that you've made. But what I found was it was much better to just ignore what everyone else was doing and to focus on my results and how I was feeling and what I was doing. Because the truth of the matter was, when I looked at other people's lives, I realized I actually don't know if they're miserable or not. I don't even really know if they've truly lost the weight that they're saying they've lost. And what I found was by keeping the focus on myself, on my actions and my own progress, I found that I could be happier and be more content with what was going on. Rule number 5, do not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them. I've got 3 kids and I'm in my 15th year of parenting. And one thing I have learned for sure is more is caught than taught. Kids watch your example and they do whatever you do. And what I started to see was, a lot of times the things I was getting annoyed with them about, it was just, things that I was doing. And that was really disturbing because I was obese and I could see that was, potentially going to lead my kids down the same path of being obese. And in fact, the statistics say that, if one of the parents is obese, your kids have a 50% chance of being obese. And if both parents are obese, the kids have an 80% chance of being obese. And I knew that if I continued down that road of being overweight, that, I was going to be really upset with my children for basically doing what I was going to do. So that provided a lot of motivation along the way to say, okay, my kids are watching me and they're going to live probably how I live. Rule number 6, set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world. Now, this rule is so helpful because so many times when we have things in our own lives that need to change, that's the moment when we just get very outward focused. We get really deep into politics or conspiracy theories or, talking about other people on Facebook or whatever the thing is. But what I started to see was the more outwardly focused I was, it was really because I just didn't want to deal with all the stuff that I needed to deal with in my own life. When I was obese, we were also in a bad financial situation. I was not in a career that I particularly enjoyed. And in general, I had become pretty fearful, just, like my life had become smaller. And thank goodness what I realized was instead of, focusing on all these things that I really couldn't control, the thing about politics is even if you pay attention and even if you have strong beliefs, there's not a whole lot you can do to affect things. But, when it comes to, say, something in your own life, like your weight or your job, those are things that you can change. It just takes you taking action. Rule 7. Pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. On the weight loss journey, it's going to be really tempting to rush, to just, do the crash diet that's going to help you lose weight really, really fast, or to do those things and commit to things that deep down you can't really commit to for the long haul, but will get the weight off quickly. But instead, if you just stop all that and you decide that this is about changing your life permanently, that this is about, unlearning bad habits and putting in really good habits, and changing your life for the rest of your life, you do things differently. And I'm really glad I did it differently this go round, because for my entire life, I always tried to do the expedient thing, the diet pills or the crash diets. And instead, when I finally took a step back and said, maybe this whole lifestyle change is the way to go, that's when things really got better for me. Rule 8, tell the truth, or at least don't lie. One of the most interesting things I learned about myself on the weight loss journey was how dishonest I was when I was overweight, because it wasn't so much that I was telling lies per se, but a lot of times I would say yes, when what I really wanted to say was no, which is technically a lie. And then there were lots of, what I would call lies of omission, things where I had something on my mind, but I just wouldn't say it out loud. I wouldn't say what was on my mind to my husband or to my kids even. But through the process of losing weight, I started to get more honest, first with myself, because I started to be really honest with myself about the foods I liked and what I was really willing to do for the rest of my life to keep the weight off. And when I got honest with myself, it helped me to be more honest with everyone around me. And again, going back to the whole idea of standing up straight with your shoulders back and learning how to say no to people and learning how to have boundaries with people, it led to having a much less stressful life, and it led to me not wanting to stress eat as much. Rule 9, assume that the person you're listening to might know something you don't. Back at the beginning of my weight loss journey, I really started to become a more contrarian thinker. I started to look at opposite viewpoints and, trying to, instead of just saying, okay, what does the mainstream say? I would go for what do the crazy people say about weight loss? And what I realized was when I started to read really broadly, and to look at, all various kinds of opinions. I mean, nowadays you've got carnivore and vegan, you've got people that hate carbs and people that love carbs. If you really just read what everybody's saying, a lot of times what it comes down to is just eating less and moving more. I think most people would freely admit that if you eat too much of any particular kind of food, you're going to gain weight. And so instead of continuing in my old habit of just, if I disagreed with somebody about one particular thing, I just kind of like throw the baby out with the bathwater. I started to say, I think I can learn from everybody. And that was really helpful because then I was able to also learn from people who had failed. I used to be afraid of listening to failure stories from weight loss, like The Biggest Loser, when they would do the update videos and people had gained all the weight back. It was at first, to me, that was so depressing. It was kind of like, well, why even bother, right? But what I started to see was if I dug a little deeper, if I really just opened my eyes to it and listened to what they said, what I found time and time again was the reason people gain weight back is because they just don't stick with the plan. They go back to their old habits, which is actually really helpful to know that all you have to do is just keep going with your plan. Rule 10, be precise in your speech. Learning how to be specific with yourself as far as what you're actually trying to accomplish. In other words, like setting a concrete goal for yourself, a weight goal, or, an actual concrete plan, a specific thing that you can put down in writing is incredibly important in the weight loss journey. And yet so few people do it. And I was one of those people. I would just be vague. I'm going to try to eat less, or I'm going to try to move more. But I didn't have a truly concrete plan that I could specifically say, here is actually what I'm doing to lose weight. And once I did that, once I got specific, that's when the magic happened. And the great thing is, when you start to be specific with yourself, you start to then also be specific with other people, which really helps your communication. So many times we're vague in our speech. And so then there are all these unmet expectations because you weren't being clear. But when you can be clear with people, your communication's a lot clearer and your relationships can really improve because you're communicating clearly, which of course leads to less stress eating. Rule 11, don't bother children when they're skateboarding. Now, this rule is really about learning how to toughen up and also take risk. And, in the beginning of a weight loss journey, it can be really scary. It can feel like there's a lot at stake. Like, the discomfort you're in right now. But that situation. You know what it's like. You may not know what it's like to be at a normal weight, or you may not know what it will be like. If you lose weight, what will your friends be like around you? What will your marriage be like? And so it's risky to take those steps that will lead you there. But ultimately, you have to take those steps if you want to lose weight. Before I started to lose weight, I had really gotten into a place where I was really germophobic, and my life had just started to get smaller, really. I had a lot of fear in my life. And it was only through, facing those fears and stepping outside of my comfort zone consistently that I really made progress on my journey. And I also learned how to be a tougher negotiator with myself. For example, I really wanted a cheat day every week, and part of me wanted to say, no, don't do that. But another part of me really wanted it. And I'm glad that I kind of stood up for myself and said, yes, I do want that. I was honest and I was specific, and I've implemented it. And it's been, I think, a major contributing factor to long-term success with weight loss for me. Rule 12, pet a cat when you encounter one on the street. Now, this rule is really about noticing those moments of happiness in your life and just letting yourself enjoy them. And on the weight loss journey, it's really easy to say, well, I'll be happy once I get down to my goal weight, or I'll be happy once I can get into a 2-piece, or whatever the thing is. But if instead you cultivate gratitude, both for your body and just for life in general, right where you're at, like however many pounds you weigh today, just be grateful for every pound that you have on your body, because ultimately your body was just doing what you asked it to. When you feed it extra food, it just says, okay, I'm going to store this, And so just being grateful for everything, for your body and how amazing it is, just the way it works and what a miracle that is. And then all the moments of happiness that are available to us just in everyday life. I learned through this process of losing weight that I need to turn off my devices more, turn off my device and put it down, or put it in a different room, and then focus on my kids, be really present where my feet were, listen to their stories and talk to them. Don't, just kind of like halfway acknowledge them while I scroll through my Facebook feed. and, just in general, being grateful for life. So again, this book, if you've never read it, I highly recommend it. If you're on the weight loss journey or in maintenance too, it's just a great read. He goes into a lot more of the scientific stuff behind all these things that we talked about, and the history and all. It's just a great book. It's kind of a dense read, but I think well worth the effort. So thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.